So why don't you tell us about Snapping Turtle Farm? And Allison and I were working together. I was Allison's mentor. We saw each other just twice, I think, and then we finally got you to come visit North Slope Farm. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey? How long have you been at this property? How did you choose to buy it? And what's your
So
journey been
we
like?
are in, we just finished, 2020 was our 4th year of operation. I grew up in New Jersey, ended up going into a totally different career. Ended up spending 20 years in California in a different career, and then came back to New Jersey. I did kind of grow up at Cook College though. My dad ran the soil testing lab from 1967 to 97. So I was always around the university and around the ag students. And as Dad and I traveled quite a lot together, I basically heard every lecture in his basic soils class at least once. And we used to talk about all that. So he always told me not to go into farming. So I went into a completely different career as an anthropologist. And ended up working for museums, but was involved with a lot of friends in California who were involved with the local food movement. Used to work my friend's farmer's market stall. She has a sheep cheese farm down near Watsonville, California, a little south of San Francisco. And we decided a few years ago to come back to New Jersey, and we looked all over the state. And finally, after trying to buy a few different farms, we ended up in Cranberry, New Jersey, partly because it has a real dedication to preserving farmland in the community. We have Cranberry is only 3,000 people, and its density is 1/20th of the town next to it in terms of population density. So they're trying to preserve every bit of farmland. So they're really a pro-farm community, but also we're surrounded by places like Plainsboro, New Jersey, West Windsor, New Jersey, not far from Princeton, which are higher density communities with a lot of interest in local food. And so we bought, I don't know what we were thinking, we bought a completely unimproved piece of farmland. Almost 5 years ago now. And when I say unimproved, it did not have a driveway. So we would drive across the edge of our neighbor's field to get to our fields, which are behind his. So in the past 4 years, we've put in a driveway. Well, it's New Jersey, so the first thing we did was put in a deer fence. And then a driveway, a barn, figured out some irrigation. Over the last, we really knew we want to take care of the land organic. And so we ended up with our organic certification. And we sell mainly at community farmers markets. And then we also have a subscription program where we have people who sign up in the community get boxes of vegetables either delivered to them or they come to the farm and pick them up. This next year, we will be in 4 community farmers markets, including West Windsor. And so I'll be there with, maybe Mike went off, but Mike and I will be there together with 2 farms joining that market this year. Because as he meant, because the Plainsboro and West Windsor, New Jersey have a very large South Asian community, we have been growing a lot of South Asian vegetables. And it's been really an experience learning how to grow those. Yeah, and just a big learning experience. So Mike and I, when he'd come to the farm, we'd talk. My farm was intensely cultivated soybean, wheat, corn rotation for many, many years by a farmer who was renting it from an owner that was off-site. So there wasn't really a lot of attention paid to taking care of the land, I'll say. It's very, very sandy soil. So it's fair. So my organic matter in the soil the first year was less than 1%. So I've been working on building that up, a lot of cover cropping, a lot of additional organic matter that Mike and I have really been discussing. because the low organic matter, we're trying to go minimal till, so I don't keep tilling and using up that organic matter. And so one of the things I experimented with this last year was having living aisles, basically planting a cover crop during the year between my rows. And that went pretty well this year to suppress weeds, but also keep that adding to the soil during the year. And Mike and I are looking at a different mix for the next year on that. Yeah. So it's been an odd year. Do you have any of the pictures I sent you of my market stall during a COVID year with all of us masked up? You can't even see it. You can't even see us because it's a rainy day. It's pretty funny. We've been doing farmers markets since the beginning, and this has been an interesting year. A couple of our farmers markets went online for half the year, and we were doing drive-through markets where you run out and stick something in someone's car. Other markets, Little Falls Farmers Market, for example, they decided to open, but then we were ended up with increased distance, no handling. It's the one with the red there. A lot of increased distance and no, and so you can see that we have double tables, distance, no tablecloths because was a requirement so that everything could be really easily cleanable. This is later in the year, so we did decide, we did get permission to allow people to pick out their own tomatoes with heirlooms tomatoes, since they are so unique looking and wasn't really working out to pre-box heirloom tomatoes we found. So, but it was an interesting year, that's for sure with that. On the other hand, our subscription program, we happened to launch the vegetable, box a week. The same week New Jersey went on lockdown last year. I just happened to be marketing it March 15th. And so that we got all 20 families signed up in 2 hours. And I turned away many, many people. So we'll see how that goes this year. But there was definitely a lot of interest in that. Of course, by then I'd already done all the farm planning for the year, so I couldn't increase the number of families we could support because by March, everything was pretty well underway. So this shows our living aisles in between. Yeah.
I need
Was the high tunnel here, Allison, was that your first year growing in there? Or was this your second year?
Yeah, that we put up, we got it up. I was just looking up the dates today for my organic farm plan update. In April, we put that up. That was also fun. I was hoping to bring a few people to help us with that, but at that time we really didn't want any, everyone was in lockdown, so it took a little longer than we thought to put it up with just 2 of us. And that wasn't, I was experimenting with that this year as the first year using that. So we did a variety of things in it. We did a squash and zucchini and a couple types of tomatoes, a couple types of cucumbers and peppers and eggplants to see which did the best for us. I was really happy with how much it extended our season for cucumber. Our cucumber disease out in the field tends to take us out pretty early. We're working on that. We didn't have that problem in the high tunnel. So while I didn't get earlier cucumbers, I got a longer cucumber season.
One of the interesting things visiting Snapping Turtle Farm and visiting Closter Farm is like the difference between the scale of the settings. So I think, Allison, it seems like you've got a large parcel. And so it seems like one of your strategies is to not be afraid to spread things out. Like you said, planting the alley, trying to get the alleyways with establishing a living mulch to get that microorganisms flourishing in your soil. So different kinds of production methods from one farm to another.
Yeah, where we do our greens, we have them very close together. If you go back to the website, we might have, Facebook, we might have some pictures there. Our greens and brassicas and everything, we grow under covers, and those we put very tightly spaced. But this year we decided for our eggplants, I think you're at the very bottom. So if you scroll up, you'll get to more recent pictures.
When I was looking at everybody's Instagrams, I found that the most interesting photos I was finding at the beginning when everybody was all excited for taking their first photos.
Yeah, so our greens and things, we grow everything that we're harvesting the leaves of under row covers, and that we put really close together. But then our tomatoes, peppers, and eggplant that we do a lot, we were finding there had been a lot of problems with grasses growing over the edge of the plastic in previous years. So this year I said, as you say, we're not using all our space yet for production while we're still building infrastructure. So I said, let's spread it out so I can get the tractor down those rows. I was experimenting with mulching the edges of the plastic with wood chips this year and seeing what we could do to do it. And then just being able to mow regularly with a tractor in less time and continually mow. And it worked pretty well. We don't usually cover, there's pictures here of things like this is our first year. So the deer fence is only halfway up. So we literally covered every single thing, tomatoes, everything with row covers that you see there just to keep the deer off them until the deer fence went up. So there's tomatoes under there, there's squash under there, everything just because the deer pressure is so big in the area. That's why the first thing we did was fence in 18 acres of deer fencing, which has really made it a lot easier to keep everything under control.
You're in an interesting juxtaposition between the intensive development and the big nursery on the other side. Is there anything you want to share about that?
Yeah, so one of the reasons we bought this piece of farmland is between us and there's literally apartment buildings that I can wave at. But between us is Cedar Brook, which is a small river. And so that is our buffer zone for the organic and gives us some room between us and our neighbors. So that there is a little bit of room that we're not right up against them. I say we can wave, but that's like from a distance. This is some gooseberries we're putting in. We have never gotten, someone was asking earlier about complaints from the neighbors or anything. We've never gotten complaints from our neighbors. In fact, several of them are signing up this year to be customers for the subscription service. I was putting in a well, there was no well on the property. We had fun. It took us 18 months for NOFA-NJ to get us electricity, which meant we couldn't put in a well pump for quite a long time after we had the property. But we were able to irrigate out of our Cranberry Brook and Cedar Brook. So the biggest problem this year with the neighbors is with COVID, we had a lot of people coming onto the property, which was not the best because my farm dog does not like other dogs. And we did have someone tear apart our irrigation pump. And it just seemed like someone bored wanted to do some destruction. So that was unfortunate. But in general, we really like it. Our town Cranberry, the apartment buildings are in Plainsboro. Our town Cranberry is very farm friendly and it's really been supportive. When we needed to do the barn, I drew up the permit. I literally did myself. I went out and printed out a map from a web soil survey, drew on it and turned that in to get it. So. We used the plastic mulch for weed suppression, and then I can't say that word, so the sun didn't get to it, occultation. And then we, when it was time to put in the fall carrots, we pulled it aside, smoothed it out, and planted the carrots after. Then plant them, then wait a few days, do a fire weeding before the carrots come up, and then we end up with a pretty good weed-free fall carrot crop. I do have 2 people worked with me this last year.
All right. Thank you very much, Alison.